session is for you, so feel free to interject, have a conversation. I'm here for you, and I want you to feel comfortable with anything that I'm saying, or even if you feel that needs a correction, feel free to do that. We are all heroes, and so today we want to find out what is a hero's journey. We probably know our own hero's journey, but it's just good to give it some framework. And we'll be referring to a few texts. One of them is the very famous book by Joseph Campbell. It's also titled The Hero's Journey. He was a very inspiring monomyth writer, which basically means that he would look at myths from different parts of the world and then come out with his own thesis on what a hero's journey is. So we'll walk some of the things he said, but we'll also look at Eastern wisdom that he drew upon. He would travel to India, learn from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, other texts. He would travel to other countries and look at the ancient wisdom. He was also very successful as a person. He was the person behind George Lucas's Star Wars theme, and we'll cover that too. But this topic is something which is unique to all of us, but also very important to understand. So I look forward to having a conversation with you today. Some background. I'm the founder of EdBrand, which is a college admissions counseling service. For the last 25 plus years, I've been guiding students through a very personalized one-on-one coaching model, which is a very strength-based coaching model. And effectively, we identify their stories, but we also help them identify the right fit university. So that's something I do. I've grown that as a business, but I've also shrunk that as a business now to free up my time for the next phase of my life, which is to be perhaps a learner, an educator, someone who can share and learn from all interactions. That's the second part of my job, which led me to having very crucial conversations with people in education, and I started collegefair.live. Collegefair.live was a webinar series which started during the pandemic. However, it quickly turned into a very successful virtual events platform. I remember Arjun, your team, many of you joined those sessions during those very turbulent times for all of us. 21 months, 14 fairs, around 30,000 families interacted on a platform. But as the pandemic waned, my team and I were totally exhausted. We had never worked so hard. And we're going through, obviously, all the ailments and other things. That sort of had a reset, and my thinking also changed. And looking at the feedback from my team, I realized that there's no point burning the candle on both ends. And that also gave me momentum to grow on my spiritual practice, rediscover it, and then hone on it by finding good teachers. So most of my life now, today, is kind of harmonized by this spiritual practice. I constantly learn and also feel that sharing that makes me more stronger in my belief to practice it further, because I learn so much more when I share this wisdom with everyone else. So that's a very important part of my life today, and I've started something called a non-profit, which is called School for the Heart. And we do focus on sharing spiritual wisdom in a non-sectarian way. Of course, wisdom texts in all religions have various common themes. There could be different paths, there could be different final outcomes defined in a different way. At the end of the day, we are looking for peace, happiness, contentment. And there's many ways to do it, but I'll focus on the Eastern texts which I read. So before we actually dive into the hero's journey, I have an exercise for all of you. I'll ask questions, very simple. All of you are in an education institute, so you'll be able to answer yes, no questions. But I also want you to stand up when I tell you to and walk to one side of the room if the answer is yes. So your right is this, okay? So when the question is posed, and if you think that the answer should be yes, stand up, walk to that side, and then pause and see the other side, people on the other side, if there are any. And then I'll ask the next question, and if you want to move around, you can do that too. So yes means you're right, no means you're left, okay? So the first question, would you lie to your supervisor so that you can go to a special event and skip work? Or skip classes, right? Or skip a tutorial if you're doing research with a professor. Okay, so stand up. If your answer is yes, you would lie. And be honest, no one's judging you. Everyone's done all of this. Right, so then the answer is yes, right? Okay, right means yes. No means this side. Yeah, anywhere. Yeah, just. Okay. See, yeah, so we have very good, very good. Yeah, so this is excellent. So everyone's like, okay, these are the honest ones, and we are like faking it, but till we make it, right? Okay. Now he's like, okay, I've changed my mind, and she's going that side. So there's some confusion, right? So there's the power of the herd mentality. No one wants to be honest. Oh. That's the perfect question.
How many times when you did also?
Yeah. So I saw Anju was here, and now suddenly she's here.
I've done that.
Okay. Yeah. So your mind tells you I shouldn't be doing it, but you're
I
here.
can tell you my excuse also.
Okay. So second question. Would you make something up on your CV that could help you get your dream job? Okay. Fine. Keep moving. Don't say anything. Keep move. Action speaks louder than words. And it also depends on the amount of embellishment you did on the resume, right? Great. Next question. After you've interacted with people, you're in a university, you meet with people from different backgrounds, different parts of the country, other countries, or you might have traveled and interacted with people. Do you feel that the world is, you feel more optimistic about the world's ability to solve its problems? After seeing and interacting with people from diverse backgrounds. Of course, there's a geopolitical shift happening right now, but you feel that people can solve their problems. So people on the right are optimists, and here on the left are pessimists, right? Perfect. Okay. So here's the last question. Would you rob a bank to donate the proceeds and give it to your favorite orphanage, which you really care for?
If I have the capability and that bank is very big, I might be somewhere in the middle. If I get one more push to
But it's a yes/no question. There's no middle.
I'm not capable of robbing a bank.
Okay.
I'm not capable of robbing.
Okay, not key.
It really happened in Taiwan,
Yeah, you
No,
can't.
it's true. It's true. Really happened in Taiwan.
Yeah.
One guy.
So it's called Robin Hood effect, right?
He knew he got the cancer, and
Yeah.
he always did something bad. So before he died, he think I have to do something good. So he
Okay.
robbed the bank and donate all the money.
Hello. Okay. It's okay. It's
This
okay.
is the true story in Taiwan.
It happened, right? So there are Robin Hoods everywhere. Okay. So we had so many questions and some confusion in our own heads how to answer them. And these were questions I asked in a game setting. It's not even like real life situations where you go through a challenging disruption. So what if we have disruptions, and we have these questions, what will we do? We look for a teacher or a guide. That guide could be a book or a person. But before I go on, you can go back and take your seats. Okay, that's the last part of the instruction. So when we have questions for simple things too, we look for teachers. However, life's biggest problems are often overlooked, and we try to pretend that we can deal with them on our own. But what does a good teacher mean? What does a good teacher really do is what we'll cover now. A good teacher or a guide is someone who knows you, someone who knows your situation, and someone who loves and cares for you. So very often we grow up and our parents cannot be the perfect guides. They love us and they care for us, but they perhaps do not know what our generation is going through. Or they do not really contextualize things because they have a lot of baggage of being the parent, being the authority in the house, and not have an ability to listen carefully. So yes, these are things that we need to know. The other aspect of a good teacher is someone who can really, you go to the teacher for, say, an education direction. So you go to an education consultant or guide for that. You can get a guide to figure out a work-life balance and what are the extracurriculars you could do. I'm a counselor, so I've dealt with figuring out how students can balance their academic life and extracurricular life, and even how they wish to make a contribution in the world. So a counselor would essentially be a person who's a guide for a student. And then all of us have perfect relationships, right? In the room we are all very, very, very happy souls, and no one has hurt us, we don't hurt anyone, life is super smooth. So, but if you do, and if you know someone who does, there's some guidance required in those areas as well. So before we go on to the hero's journey, every session I do, I tend to pay respect to teachers who have taught me the wisdom. This is not me with my own knowledge or my experiences. This is something that I've realized by being with teachers. And teachers are books, my environment, my challenges, and particularly people I really respect as individuals in my life. So the exercise today is for you to think of a person, a place, or even a situation which taught you many things. Because that, what it taught you, is priceless. And what that really means is you acknowledge whatever's happened to you and respect it for what it is, and not think of it as a burden. Look at a challenge as a learning opportunity. So close your eyes, and I'll just read out this. Think of one person, place, situation, who or something that has helped you along the way to be here. You seem to be all pretty successful individuals, very successful students, people who are settled in their jobs. And we'll get to what settled really means. But let's just say that you're here today. You're comfortable, right? In the air-conditioned environment, in a very opulent, abundant sort of setting. So yeah, there's someone we have to owe it to. Our parents, could be anyone else. So just close your eyes for a minute, and I'm just going to recite a Sanskrit prayer, which basically talks about how a teacher is so generous with their heart and their time, and with the torchlight of knowledge kind of dispels the darkness in our hearts to show us the path of illumination. So it goes like this. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So the last two words I guess everyone would recognize. Guruve Namaha means I bow down to that teacher. So we'll move forward now, and I want to respect and pay gratitude to 3 and many more people I met in the last 4 days on campus. So Anju invited me, but she's more than inviting, she's been in touch for many years. And the thing that I really have gratitude for her is her heart-centeredness. She's very welcoming, not just to students, but she is what she is. She's someone who says what she thinks and does what she says. So that's the definition of a Mahatma. So you can correlate Mahatma Gandhi and the situations that we are in today, but that's a different topic. The second person, of course, I wanted to share was Ramnath Narayan Swami. I wish he was there, professor. And I was challenging him in class. And I was challenging him in his 2 sessions. Second session I did, but I was really eager and curious to how he's become such a authentic seeker. He has this power to be vulnerable in front of audiences, and he also is a great teacher because he just puts you down in the beginning. He's got his own style. Every session he begins with is, you don't know anything, I know everything, but in a very fun way. And so he sort of sets the mood that, okay, you need to shake up, wake up, and pay attention to what I'm going to say. And I think that was really something I picked from him. And his journey was fantastic, from being such a scholar, being an atheist, leftist, to now becoming a seeker, was something which I was in awe of. And so wish he was here. Maybe we'll send him the recording. And I also met Dr. Amit, and he is such a meticulous thinker, very, very articulate about what he's trying to do, and he's very focused on his area of expertise, and that, I'm sure, attracts other students and other people. So yes, but many of us didn't begin as heroes. So Anju, Professor Ramnath, Professor Amit, they are heroes to many of our students, but they perhaps did not have that right from the get-go. They've gone through their journey, and we'll talk about the different thresholds that they crossed, challenges and temptations that they had to deal with to be where they are today. So we are all sleeping heroes to begin with. This famous book, Awaken the Giant Within, and many other self-help books. But essentially, if we follow this narrative arc of the hero's journey, we'll get to realize those self-help books even better. And if we club it along with our wisdom texts and learn from teachers, not from what they are telling you in class, but by their behavior, which is an acharya is someone who has the acharan, or the behavior is manifested in their emotions, thoughts, actions, non-verbal communication and habits. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes someone's character. And once you can shape your character, it's very hard to kind of cut that if it's not that great. But if it's great, then you also move further, and that you can define your destiny, you can shape other people's destinies, then you become a true hero. So this is, in short, the summary of the session, and I can stop here and we can do Q&A. However, we'll continue. There are many pieces we'll be juggling today. Okay, the Star Wars. How many of you know of Star Wars, the series? Okay, good. How many of you watched it? Okay, all of you have. Or you can also Google and do Grok or ChatGPT and find out the main characters if you want to. However, we'll talk about the Ramayana also, we'll talk about the Gita, we'll talk about various other texts. So we'll have to juggle many things. And there's a framework which is called the Dharma Code from a book of Dharma, which was very interestingly a book which a Persian king sent his chief, let's say, physician, doctor, and he was aging and he was about to die, and he said, in India I've heard people in the Himalayas live for very long lives, 400, 500 years is pretty common, that's what I've been told. So why don't you go to the Himalayas and find out what that elixir is, where is that potion, which herbs to mix. So this physician went and he would look, and everywhere he went he heard stories. Like he would sit with the sage saying, you're very old, your eyebrows are coming up to your knees, obviously you must be really old, or whatever else. You seem happy, you don't wear any much clothes, even in the winter in a cave up in Siachen or wherever. But how is it that you do this? Most of the sages either would not speak, or they would just ask, he would just follow them around and see what they're doing. Some sages would sit down and tell him stories. He said, I don't want stories, I want those herbs. My king is waiting. Right? So he made several trips and he would come back saying, I don't know, these are the stories I'm hearing, these are the things I'm hearing. So the book of Dharma was documented in Persia, and that's still available. It's called by a name. For reference, I can also share it with you. Later on, you can come up to me. And not just one king from Persia, but many kings from many parts of the world came to India seeking the elixir or the gold or the loot or whatever you want to. Whatever they felt was what their elixir in life was. Someone gets kicks out of getting a lot of things or possessions. Someone gets their wealth and strength from knowledge. Someone would get their strength from performing arts. Another person would just get their wealth and sort of fulfillment through being very skillful in whatever little you do. Could be sound engineering, setting up, or could be even being a visual artist, or even setting up the camera and enjoying what you do. So our wealths come from different sources, and there's 6 wealths that we know of in our tradition, which is common across any country. We can say, how do people have this wealth propensity, and we'll figure that it's linked to the work that we do in our world, in this world. So you have different occupations, many of us are educators here. Fine, there is a certain level of money we all need, but after a while, it also becomes, what next? What else do I want? What do I really care for? And those are things we'll also cover today. In the ordinary life, when we haven't woken up, we haven't figured out what motivates us, or what is our purpose and why we exist and where are we going, life seems to be a drudgery. So there's a syndrome which is grab a coffee syndrome, which is something which one of my teachers mentioned in a class. You could call it grab a phone syndrome. The first thing we do is grab a phone. The first thing before sleeping is when we grab a phone. First thing we do in the middle of the night is grab the phone. So this is the life of an ordinary soul. What do we do then? What happens is we feel as if every day is the same. Who you are today was who you were yesterday. It's kind of the status quo that we live in. We accept the status quo and we don't wish to change that. That depends on our fears. A lot of our unknowns lead us to think that life has no purpose. In fact, we start resenting life. Some people also take the extreme steps. They hurt people by doing what they do, by sort of committing suicide or even hurting other people in a very, very disruptive way. The bottom line of all of this is we see disruption as a threat, and that cynicism is the state of being that we carry with us. So this is, my friends, an ordinary life, and many of us are victim to this. This whole system is designed to make us a victim of this. The system is not just, whatever you want to give it a name, capitalism or whatever else, but our ancient wisdom texts of the East have said, the world is this place of suffering, or Maya sort of envelopes your knowledge and you are ignorant. There are many things that we don't know and don't wish to know, and we feel that we are not able to see the sun because there's a cloud right over our head. We say the sun hasn't come out, but essentially what we haven't seen is the clouds that are covering the sun. So the truth is always there, but a life which is an ordinary life doesn't let us sort of move towards that. However, there are life's very big disruptions, and then we have two choices: to seek teachers, get guidance, or just get into the woodwork in the room and just forget that anything happened. Just shut ourselves down completely. This challenge could be so big that it nudges us to do something about it. Wake up. It could be, you've seen the movie Matrix, the blue pill, the red pill. What is the blue pill? What is the red pill, students? Okay, whatever. One of the pills was that you want to take that challenge and try to escape from the Matrix. And the other was just stay where you are. In a way, you die. If you don't move, you die. You don't grow, you die. But I'm saying in that sense of mortal frame and dying, but in terms of not growing anymore. So once we take that blue pill, we are setting out on a call for adventure. And that's when we are ready to accept our life quakes, which are like earthquakes. A life quake is a disruption, a challenge, or even a temptation which you gave into. If we cross that hurdle, we are moving forward. Like an earthquake, a challenge, or giving into temptation, we don't know when it will come, what magnitude it will be, and where the epicenter will be. Likewise, in our life, we don't know where it will come from, whether it will be a relationship issue or it will be some violent act, an act of war which is imposed on us, or our career and financial issues become predominant in our lives, or even our physical and mental health issues come up. So very often we see a person was hale and hearty, everything fine, suddenly when they turn 55, they had this hypertension out of nowhere. This happened to someone I know. Or recently I also had friends who lost their kids and it was devastating. I didn't know how to react in accidents and very strange circumstances. So that's, my friend, life quakes. We need to definitely reflect. So please read this question and again close your eyes and think what it really means to you. What are the things that happened in your life that shook you up? Some events that destroyed meaning and joy in your life. How did you feel at that time? Again, you don't have to share it with us, but I'm available here today, so I'm happy to talk to any one of you one-on-one. So the key is to reflect now and take a pause. So maybe another 10 seconds and then I'll move on. What are the things that happened in your life that shook you up? Some events that destroyed meaning and joy in your life. How did you feel at that time? Okay. If you notice that you look inward, there's also that relief, there's that you start looking at how you breathe, you start sensing your being in a completer way. So finding that time for contemplation is something we need more in life. So gratitude, contemplation, these are the two things we've covered: teachers, gratitude, and now looking at life's problems and contemplating in a calm environment, preferably with friends. So what happens is we stop looking at challenges and temptations as pains and problems, and we look at them as purpose, finding our purpose, and progress. So there's a whole paradigm shift. Stephen Covey acknowledged that he got most of the 7 habits are listed in our books and texts. So there are many self-help books, teachers who have been inspired by our wisdom texts. Many movies have been inspired by our wisdom texts. So we'll get to why we should also go back to them, but read them in a group which you kind of relate to and make it sensible. So part of the hero's journey is to understand that you're a spiritual being in a human body and experiencing a world which is rather complicated and designed to give you suffering. Of course, you can flip it as well by becoming a hero. We'll have some time, but I have 2 parts of this whole conversation. It's actually a 3-month program that I run, which I'm trying to give you a quick overview of in 1 hour and then take questions. It's already half an hour, so you'll see how much we cover. So either by force or voluntarily, we decide or we are pushed out to this journey, which is the hero's journey. Like any journey, you have roads which go around, some roads which are problematic, some roads which become narrower, some roads which have too many street bumps, some roads which have too many red lights. So, and some roads which are like expressways. We have the Delhi-Mumbai expressway, and I use that every weekend to go to a place from Gurgaon. And it's a 2-hour drive, and it's the most heavenly situation for me. There's hardly any traffic, a fantastic drive. But this has got nothing to do with my drive to Vrindavan, but this is something to do with the call to adventure we all set out to. And roads are never like that in our lives. So we need to sort of read different parts of this road, hero's journey. I'll elaborate on them as we go along. So when we set out, it's the call to adventure. There are obviously challenges and temptations that come along the way. But when we decide that we want to confront those challenges and temptations is when we cross a threshold. And when we do that, something exciting happens. There is a magnetic field that kind of builds up around us. And we start attracting supernatural aid. From the woodwork, teachers come out and sort of start helping us. We become a lot more receptive. Have you noticed that when you're in most deepest anguish, pain, remorse, not remorse, but maybe pain, you feel a lot more alert at times too. Not always, but at times of grief perhaps or something else. And you're kind of very receptive for something or someone to help you, right? So that's the supernatural aid you're attracting to yourself. You've created that because you want help. You're not like giving up on it. Internally you're asking for it, right? So some people call it manifestation. Some people remember Shah Rukh Khan and talk about that very famous dialogue. Anju, you know the dialogue. Okay. So but this doesn't end. So even after the supernatural aid and the knowledge from the gurus and teachers that you get is there, we still fall into temptations and we still have more challenges because we are a hard nut to crack. So what happens then is once we are able to use the help again and get guidance and realize that knowledge, there's Gyan, which all of us are experts at, including me. I'm parroting what I've learned from my teachers. But there's something called Vigyan, which is realized knowledge, where it becomes part of your nature. So everyone's heard of the Mahabharata, and the Kurus and the Pandavas grew up in the Gurukul with Dronacharya. So one day, like few days actually, the eldest Pandav Yudhishthir was asked questions and after a lesson, and the teacher said, "Did you understand?" You know, I remember my teachers in school, "Do you understand?" Like that they used to go on, right? So there's very dramatically, I went to a school in Calcutta, which was very hilarious and a very, let's say, vital. Like they were really, all the teachers had that excellent energy. And I wish there are many more teachers like them. So when Yudhishthira was asked, "Do you understand?" he would never raise his hand. Everyone else would raise their hands. And then the teacher said, "What's wrong with you? I know you're getting good marks in our exams. You obviously understand, but why don't you raise your hand?" He's saying, until I realize this knowledge, it becomes part of my life, I will not raise my hand. Right? So most of them were philosophical questions and this and that, right? And the teacher was really happy. So once we realize that knowledge, that we reach an abyss, which is a point of no return, we are dramatically a different person. When we started off as an ordinary person whose today was the same as yesterday in our drudgery, but now when we cross or be in this abyss, we know we cannot go back to our ordinary life. We know we cannot go back to an unregulated sort of way of thinking, being, acting. We know that we cannot ingest things just for the heck of it. We know we need to value our time. We know we need a routine. We know what rewards we want. We know where happiness lies, and that's what it means by crossing those thresholds and temptations and challenges and reaching the abyss. So once you do that, you hone your skill further with your practice, and you reach a place where you get the gift, the big gift, the boon. So in Star Wars, Princess Leia was captured back, as if she was freed from the clutches of Darth Vader in the Death Star. So I'll just do a segue between Star Wars and what we are talking about right now. So there's this prince and princess. Prince, as in person, his name is Luke Skywalker, and then there's Princess Leia. So they're actually siblings who've been separated at birth, and they don't know each other. She's a princess, and there's this nasty villain, like many other myths have. His name is Darth Vader. He's created this planet, which is the Death Star, and then he wants to do what? He wants to rule the world. He wants to somehow subjugate every person, every planet in this universe, not just the world, the whole universe. So very common, right? We know people who want to do that too even today. And what does Luke do? Luke Skywalker is got these teachers who tell him that you have to now go on to this journey. And what does he do? He goes, he finds new teachers through his journey, like Obi and many others. He assembles a team of chimpanzees and monkey-like creatures, and then goes to the Death Star, fights Darth Vader, defeats him, and frees Princess Leia, comes back to the kingdom, and is coronated with grand honor. Now, someone who is, I'm going to skip to one slide, but people who have faith in, say, Indian scriptures will say, okay, this sounds like Ramayana, you know. There's, and then others who have, who don't know about Ramayana, they'll say, well, the characters are unique, that's Star Wars. So, not saying it's wrong to appropriate, it's also good to acknowledge. So I'm not sure if George Lucas did or did not. And he made its millions and billions from the franchise. And that's not the whole story in the Star Wars. And I'm not here to tell you that, okay, this is great and everything's coming from India. But the point I'm trying to make is these are common themes and they can be picked up from various things. So these are some images from that. This is Luke, Obi, and others. So yes, it was in some ways the characters and some of the stories, the broad storyline was essentially Ramayana. And Ramayana obviously predates what Joseph Campbell helped George Lucas write in his script for the Star Wars franchise. So going back to our life quakes, yes, we have to acknowledge that there will be life quakes. I wish they were not. But some of you might have already faced some. and then there will be more if some things go wrong, and even as basic as health and disease and old age and whatever. So that's something which is going to happen to everyone, or even death. However, we are in a very acclaimed university. How many of us actually go to class where spiritual wisdom is taught and practiced? How many of us actually know that we can go to this research center and study one aspect of our suffering? And there are 3 sufferings mentioned. One is lamentation and remorse. The other is confusion. And the third is fear. Is there any PhD thesis in Flame which links what ancient wisdom does to tackle each of these sufferings and link it to an interfaith dialogue, not necessarily just stick to Indian or Indic literature and scriptures and wisdom texts? Could be Taoist, Zen, the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, any other New Age religions, and so on and so forth. Or even self-help books of people who are influencers in relationships and any of it. Are we really having any of that research? Why aren't schools teaching this? Well, we'll get to that later, but let's say, just planting a thought in your head. We're not taught, and it's a shame that we are not taught, how to deal with life quakes. So when you are pushed out of a comfort zone or your ordinary life, you have to confront things you've never wished to confront. That's when you cross that threshold. We've talked about all this, just wanted to summarize, and start looking for answers or a framework to make decisions. And that framework is something I teach for 3 months. It's not like in one session to learn, because it's also about thinking, reflecting, acting, journaling, correcting yourself, having what I call a sadhana card, which is understanding how you can keep repeating something till you make it a habit which doesn't move very quickly. We all want to make decisions. We want to also focus on making quality decisions. Instead, we put too much importance on acquiring just knowledge. And like I said, Gyan is one thing, but Vigyan is another. Skills are great. It will help you reach where you are. I also speak at corporates, and the common refrain is that yes, it's an ordinary life. We do get bonuses, we get our evaluations, we get this, but all of this we don't think, or we don't have time to think. Monday to Friday is crazy amount of work, travel, this, that, work, travel, and Saturday and Sunday we just want to have a good time. We don't want to deal with what's happening in those glass and steel buildings. So what is that framework that we need to deal with the life quakes and the 3 sufferings that we spoke of, which is lamentation, confusion, and fear? This is just a slide, but it's the most powerful slide I've seen in my life. It's a very badly done slide because I'm not a very good slide deck maker. I put this up today, but I know my friends here now who are helping out in all of this at Flame, so it'll be good. So the Dharma principles are truth, purity, non-violence, and discipline. Look at it as doors that you have to open. To be where you are today, to get the knowledge of what you're doing, you need to put an effort in a disciplined way for anything. So you have a thesis to write, or to learn a new technology to operate, or use a new CRM tool for outreach. I know my audience is very wide, so I'm just addressing all of you. So a researcher, or coming up with a very different way to come up with a business plan and understand all the new AI tools that you have. There is discipline required, right? I was going over several AI tools with a IIM Kozhikode grad I met in Pune on Sunday. And I gave him a problem definition, and he just opened 8 different ChatGPT-esque things. And I said, why 8? Why can't one do it? He said, no, this does this, and this does that, and this does this. And if you want your operations manual for your company, I can give it to you, but let me study this my way. So there's Gemini, and there's Gemini AI Studio, which I had no idea of. It's the beta version of Gemini. So, and then there are these others which were from a very friendly country up north, which also do a great job. So for getting our framework, for many things we look at our tools, but to solve a basic requirement of our soul, we don't really have a framework or a system of education. So this is something which I'm really invested in, and in fact some of our team members are also getting opportunities to teach this in other countries which are of totally different faiths, who are in fact antagonistic faiths, but they do want to use this knowledge. And it's surprising to see that acceptance coming through. So we'll go over this, but like I said, it's really hard to summarize all the principles in this short session. We're already 45 minutes in. The next part of our discussion is to say, how do we unpack things in our life and keep it simple? We've done most of this already. We've talked about problems and we're looking for questions, and the first thing we do is look for a guide. Just to make it simple, there's an acronym which also coincides with the book, the Gita, and that's the summary of the book in a way. GITA is what you need to remember. You have a problem, you have questions, you look for guides. So what does the guide do? Obviously, he's someone who's adding value to you and it'll help you evolve and mature in understanding, and it will also dispel your limited conditioning. So that's really good. A true guide, the first thing that true guide will do, and you can remember your best coaches and mentors at work or otherwise, will not write a prescription कि I know what your problem is, ये करो and you'll be all right. Instead, she or he will listen intently and help you know yourself better before offering any advice. So that's the quality of a good teacher, right? Very often a good boss is also like this, right? Or a good supervisor is also like this. A good friend is also like this if someone comes to you with a problem. And we respect that. But somehow when we are asked something, and someone is in trouble, we don't behave like the teacher qualities that we want, right? How often do we do that? I've made several mistakes. I've run a startup in a very, very difficult situation during the pandemic. So it's not so easy. This is something we've already covered. Talked about a guide being someone who cares for you, knows you, and has the ability to help you. So once that guide is found and has listened to you intently and given you enough time to vent your frustration or remorse or confusions, what that guide will do is help you zoom out. She or he will say, wait a minute buddy, let's put this in context. What are the different roles and hats you wear in your life? And what do those hats really do to you? How is it that you're going to deal with a disruption when you actually had to wear this hat but you wore that hat? So what that I mean is you have different identities. At the body level, we know that we are male, female, or identify ourselves with other sexual orientations. We also have an identity which is at home as a son, daughter, parent, aunt, uncle, niece, this, that. We also have identities which are based on our nationality and race and gender and skin color and height and many other things. You can actually go on and on. You'll have probably be able to list even a longer list than what I have. Again, we'll have an identity, my car is this and that person's car is better and I will aspire to be getting that car. There'll be possessions. You create your own stories of likes and dislike. I like this perfume better than this fragrance or whatever else. So your identity gets defined by people you hang out with. So the outreach team hangs out with the outreach team. The programming and academic programming team hangs out with the programming and academic team right there. So and the students hang out with each other. So we have our own identities and groups that are formed. Welcome, Gayatri. So we have what we say an identity trap. And so just to keep it simple, give an example. Some of us have these aspirations to be a CEO or the valedictorian of class or the topper of class or be the HOD in our department or in our whatever department that you have. So when circumstances change and you are not given that promotion, obviously your whole identity is shaken up, right? Or you lose that job and you've committed so much, your entire being was being the HOD or being the valedictorian, and when you go for a master's program at say a highly ranked school and you realize that you're nobody, you're like, there are so many students who are better than you. And there's a kind of identity crisis. Many of us go through that. So when we fail to let go of our false story during a life quake, then we experience the three sufferings which are mentioned in our Shastra. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it. I was thinking of an interesting way to talk about this issue as to what is suffering. Just to give you an example, I'm just trying to cook it up right now, I'm trying to correlate one. So suppose you like a new iPhone and you have like the first generation or the fifth generation iPhone. I don't know if there were fifth generation iPhones. After a while I stopped counting. And your best friend has the latest one. And you know that every time he or she gets the latest one. And this is a very bizarre example, I'm cooking it up right now. Okay, so you have been thinking about that iPhone, you've been listening to the WWDC, whatever it is. It's called WWDC? Okay, the Apple conference. And then you know all the features of the new launch. You know how you will use it. And you go to the iPhone store and just hang out there and just keep playing with it. Some of you are smiling, so perhaps we have done that. And then there's another friend who you never expected would walk in with that phone. Right? You see? This person also has it. So first thing was you were deliberating on that phone. The second thing was you got attached to that phone. The third is when someone else had it, you became envious and even angry inside that why can't I get it? How can this person get it? And then you do the most nastiest thing. And that's where something really bad happens. You steal that phone. Right? I can see people like with their open mouths. So from seeing it, deliberating on it, getting attached, having those desires to possess it, being angry when you don't get it, to acting on it. That's what we call karma. We accumulate karma when we act on our anger, lamentation, lust, anger, greed, fear, attachments, or even pride. When we act on any of these 6 enemies of our mind is when we accumulate karma. And it's very common, right? What will happen? You steal it, he goes to the reports to the cop, the cops trace it with find your phone, whatever devices, and they put you behind bars. So there are consequences. You go to jail for a phone that you looked in an advertisement, and hence you suffer in jail. Simple, right? So suffering is what happens after you lose control and you act on it. However, so the thing is, till the time you get angry, there is an opportunity to turn back. Till the time you desire, there's an opportunity to turn back. So the earlier you catch on your situation and understand your situation, it's easier to sort of dispel it and not move further to lead to suffering. So that's something that I've not thought I'll be covering, but I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more. So if we don't know who we are the eternal spirit soul with 6 qualities which are hidden from us. And that's another 2-part program which I run. What are those 6 qualities that you have? It's also linked to the wealth propensity that we yearn for in life. Some people yearn for knowledge, money, possessions. Some people yearn for being very strong internally, physically. Some people yearn. So these are the qualities we all really admire, aspire for, one or two of these are heightened or more desirable for all of us. If we don't know who we are, then our life becomes senseless. We do not know our purpose. We live a life of drudgery or ordinary life. Or worse still, we create drama in other people's lives. We sort of keep ourselves in the center and feel that the world is revolving around us. Once we know our true identity, we find purpose and start making progress. And the purpose and progress leads you to get the boon. The boon could be saving Princess Leia and bringing her back, or it could be finding that light of knowledge and Vigyan, or a cave full of jewels which dragons are guarding, whatever. You can, for different age groups, you can, if you relate to a 5-year-old, you could say, that dragon, that cave, that gold. But if you've gone through life quakes, you could say, I need some knowledge, I need to figure this out. I need to figure why I suffer. Once we know that we are a spiritual being, that we are a soul, there is something which animates our physical being. We say at the time of death, he passed away, she passed away, wo guzar gaye, whatever. So we have this whole idea of understanding our physical body, but we also somehow know that andar to kuch hai, there's something which is animating it, and that makes our body conscious. So that something that makes our body conscious is the soul. And now Western research on consciousness has picked up quite a bit. So if you start looking it up, it's an interesting thing. It's also linked to how physics evolved. So from Newtonian physics, where this is slow motion. If I throw a ball at, say Gayatri, or you, Lenin, I got your name right? Somewhat. Okay. You'll see the ball coming, you'll catch it. And Newtonian sort of explained that really beautifully. But then Einstein came along and said, okay, let's just increase that speed for everything, just like really high. So he said, okay, let me think very differently. So then from Newtonian to Einsteinian sort of thinking came around. So, and then we have the more particle physics, quantum physics, many other things. So now they've realized that how you look at particles changes the way the particles react. So your state of being of the observer is changing what is going on in the world. And that's another 4-part series I do, which is on state of being, perception and action. So when we realize this, the process of transformation begins. I know there's too much philosophy, but everyone with me so far? It's all good? So once we have an understanding of our identity, what do we do with the knowledge of our identity, that we are the soul? Fine, we have duties and other things and we are living in this world. That's exactly what happens. And you realize that actually you have two duties. You have two duties. You're not just one duty. And they're called dharmas or two dharmas. And we are living in this world, going through a road of trials without knowing that. But once we know that, we'll realize that those are the two dharmas. The Gita very nicely explains that those two duties are something which will be realized in this lifetime or subsequent lifetimes, or whatever, if you don't believe in subsequent lifetimes, in this lifetime perhaps, to be manifested, and to do things to make it manifest will also lead you to being a happy person or fulfilled person, a person we call in the flow or in the know or things like that. So all of us have a job we have been trained to do, or knowledge that we got in college but we did not apply. Our trajectories took a totally different turn. But yes, we still have to do something. As soon as we are born, we want something to eat. So there's action that we really are here to do. We cannot say, as soon as we are born, we'll run away to the forest and meditate. Though I know one person who did it in our Shastra, but that's of course a very beautiful story. We'll talk about it some other time. And that's 18,000 verses of that person running away and doing what he did. And that's the most beautiful text in Indian literature. This is other than the Gita, Mahabharata and Ramayana. It's called the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, I just was trying to get to giving you a summary of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but I'm not going to do it. So, no, I will actually. So there's a king, Parikshit, who wants to, who's ruling really well, but somehow does one act of violence, which is very small, but is cursed by a sage's son for what he did. And the curse is that he will die of a snake bird bite in 7 days. And so he kind of reorients his life completely. Immediately he goes to the forest. And that's where he meets this person who walks out of his mother's womb. And he walks out as if he's like 16 years old and goes straight to the forest. But there's something in between where he gets knowledge and all that. But he only realized that his father wants to teach him again and stuff. But then the long story short is this sage, Sukadeva Goswami, teaches Parikshit this knowledge, which is in 18,000 words captured by a college, just like Flame, which is Sutadev and Shaunak Rishis, which are like a few 100,000 sages or scholars of our time, of those times, ancient times, who would sit and deliberate on the meaning of life and philosophy. So those 18,000 words, if someone reads and realizes, I will seem pretty hollow in front of you. Like, what I'm saying is pretty much from those texts. And it's much more beautiful with poems, with stories, with anything that you can imagine that will lift you up, lift your spirits. So Swadharma is what we do in this world. So I changed my Swadharma from just being a college admissions counselor to being a media and events company founder to trying to practice spirituality kind of a person, right? So it's a journey. So when someone says, oh, I'm a realized spiritualist, I always have not a doubt, but I really admire them for saying that. It takes courage to say it. So we do work in this world, but we can harmonize a lot of our work. And that's where the next part of the acronym comes in. When we look at these two dharmas, which is Swadharma, what we do in this material world, for our body and mind, is one thing. But what we do for our soul is called Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is not a very right-wing word. It's existed before it got politicized. It means simply eternal duty. Our soul is eternal, hence our duty is eternal. And what does the soul really need? That's something we'll talk about in the Dharma slide, which will require a lot more discussion, journaling, writing, and all of that. So live a life of Dharma, of truth, purity, non-violence, and discipline will get you to feed your soul with what it really needs. It's essentially Sat, Chit, Anand, and Tapa. That's truth, purity, non-violence, and discipline. It's a beautiful book on this subject written by Simon Haas, which was published a few years ago. So that's something I can give you quite a few book references. There's a Gita book which you can refer to, which is called the Bhagavad Gita as it is, which many people have at homes because it's widely distributed and people give it to you in streets. But not many people want to study it. So whatever I'm saying today is because of that lineage. So I just want to share that. There is a Oxford Hindu Center where scholars from different faiths gather to study ancient Indian scriptures. There is a whole body of work which is coming out from fresh perspective, which can be shared in universities. If Oxford can do it, Cambridge can do it, I think Pune can do it too. So our spiritual duty, in short, is yoga. And yoga means to connect, or to reconnect, or reawaken our connection with divinity. If we have a source, you can call it by any name you wish, or some people like to call it the cosmic light, some people give it a particular name or a deity form, some people call it a book. All of that is this divinity that we are all seeking. In short, we are all the same. What do guides do? Guides help us understand our true nature, which is Sat Chit Anand Tapa, truth, purity, non-violence and discipline, so that we can live in this material world and do optimal work, which is Swadharma. And there are teachers I know who've written extensively on Swadharma, and there are workshops on Swadharma. That is something I'd love to offer college students and even people who are in their midlife career crisis, right? So there's a lot. I was in my multiple midlife career crises. So, to study Swadharma would require again practice, at least for 3 months. This whole program could run on teaching Swadharma. It could be a course. But in short, a teacher would help you understand how your livelihood can match your nature. It could be skill training, etc. Anything else. And also what I've been talking about, the 6 wealth propensities. It also the teacher would also help you identify which wealth propensity do you are best suited for. Which means, would you like knowledge for teaching, etc. What we did. So what happens when these 3 things are aligned and you have your guide, you are now connected with your true identity, and you are trying to do the best as you can to align your 2 duties and harmonize them. It's a very good feeling, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm there yet. You have very good teachers in your life for different issues who love, care and know how to help you, who also then reawaken you to understand your true identity as a spirit soul, and not just your shallow ideas of the hats that you wear, and that leads you to suffer. And then you also are taught how to realize what is your best Swadharma and how do you really develop your Sanatan Dharma or eternal or Nitya Dharma. If you're taught all of this, eventually the state of realization that you reach is called Atmarama. So that is Gita. So the Gita has 18 chapters. If you look it up, you can break it into 3 parts. Chapters 1 to 6 are called Karma Yoga. Chapters 7 to 12 are called Bhakti Yoga. And chapters 13 to 18 are called Jnana Yoga. So the first section, some of our teachers have said, could be about living well, understanding the landscape of your life and your action, and how to do the right action. And to do that, what tools do you need? You need to be at a peaceful state, so you need to do Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. So all of that is actually quite well covered. What does detached work really mean? So it's really about living well. The second section, which is chapters 7 to 12, are about loving well. Now all of us need love, right? How many of you don't? I don't know. I do. So there's all of that explained so beautifully. And soul level love, not just, mera soulmate hai, mera, jigari dost hai, right? Some of those things, right? You're all looking for that. But nowadays our soulmate has become a phone. How many of you are smirking and laughing? So that's another level. And the last section of the Gita is about letting go, right? Letting go because we know the science of how our body works and how our mind works and how it tricks us. Once we know that, only then can we let go. So the chapters there cover and explain things like how enemies of our mind, which is lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, attachment, affect us. And make certain models to understand that you think you have free will, but you actually don't. There are energies that are making you act the way you do. At the soul level, you're not really the one who's picking up the cigarette when you're pregnant, right? The soul is not telling you to do that. The soul is telling you to be pure. Sat Chit, which is basically, Chit means to be pure. To discern, to ingest what is good for you and reject what is not good for you. So if the soul wants that and you do things like what I mentioned, a simple thing, when you drive to work, The people are, you want to get here on time, very important meeting, your boss is sort of clamoring for you to sort of show up on time and help out in advance. And there's a road rage incident, like someone really blocks your car and you just lose it, right? So do you think that's your free will? Again, no. These are energies which have entered you to act the way you do in your physical body and your mental state. It affects your mind, intelligence. It also plays with the different hats you play. So it plays with the different hats you wear, which is called ahamkara. Ahamkara means that I have created my story. This is my story. Another way to look at ahamkara is aham means my, and car to sabko pata hi hai, sabko Lamborghini chahiye, or whatever you want, right? And the new Defender looks good today, I think. It's really, I'm now like, say I need some of that too. So if we look at what ahamkara does is my car, right? In short, we can remember it from that perspective. So the reason I'm saying is our goal is to be an Atmarama, but we are stuck in a very shallow, ordinary state of being. And so that letting go is what is taught in the final 6 chapters of the text. However, the middle 6 sections, which is the Bhakti Yoga sections, is awakening what we all actually really need, because everything falls in place when we know how to love and share love. Everything falls into place. And that's the beauty of this text, which takes a very personal, conversational mode to answer questions posed by a mentee, by a coach. So it's a book worth studying together. It's not a book worth keeping in a library in that plastic case that you received it in, but also taught in a way which is very practical and useful for all of us. So again, this is another image of Dharma code which has some ideas of how to reach that center. I can't go on about it, but essentially I would say that you walk through the first door of discipline, which is tapas, by doing anything. Suppose you want to say, okay, I need to awaken my spiritual quotient today after this talk. You need to do something about it. There's certain austerities, not religious activities. You have to be open to train your mind and your being. Gradually, once you start saying, yeah, this works for me, it's kind of centering me, it's making me peaceful just by getting this knowledge, then you start looking at it from a perspective of, okay, I need to do something about it. When my teacher tells me to sort of read this book for 1 hour every day and I'm liking it, let me go back to them and discuss what this book has, or whatever book. It could be a self-help book, it could be another religious book, anything. So you are now disciplined, you have some practice. For my teachers, the practice is wake up at 3, have their 4 to 5 hours of a very beautiful morning routine. We call it the morning program. And that works for a few people. It might not work for you, and it's absolutely okay. So you find your own morning program or afternoon program or evening program or late night program. But there's some quality in obviously the wee hours in the morning. You automatically are centered. And there's a whole cycle, circadian rhythm they call it, I guess. What does that passing through that door really mean? So from being disciplined, you sort of start seeing that you are in much more control of your life. There's a certain sense of knowledge which gives you ways to dispel some of the impure thoughts, words, actions, and also start reshaping your character. So that's the way we look at our the qualities of being a disciplined person. I'm looking at my watch because I just want to be mindful of time. Then, once you're disciplined and you value all of this, you gravitate towards becoming a lot more pure or discerning. Purity doesn't mean like in the sense of, in the very simple sense. It's basically about knowing what's good for you and not what's good for you at the soul level. To know what to reject and what to keep. to know what to ingest through your 5 senses. How many senses do we have? 5. Okay, and what are the 5 senses? Smell, eyes, walk, you see. Yeah, anyone? Touch. Yeah, okay. So all of these senses have to do the right things. So just meditating on that, right? Just don't do anything after this talk. Just take away this thing. I need to become a lot more pure. I have 5 senses. What am I doing during the day, throughout the day, with those 5 senses? Just keep a log. Right? That whole activity will make you think of ways you want to correct that. So it's a very powerful tool to discern your level of discernment in a way, because yeah, exactly, all of that is included. If you're distracted, that means your practice needs to be stronger. So you go back to being more disciplined. So it's like a loop. So what happens? How does a habit form? There's a trigger, and there's a routine which kicks in. So a lot of the software engineering, ma'am, you're a computer science teacher. So if this happens, then this routine will begin, and this is the reward or whatever outcome of that routine. So if we know what reward we want, and then say which routine is good for me, and then you see which trigger will get me there, and then do it conversely also. Which reward I don't want, which routine will be required for it, and what triggers that bad routine, which will get me to the bad outcome. So it's just a science. It's called spiritual science. It's not taught, it should be taught. So this is just one level. So if I just leave here, we can do it for 3 months, and I'll come back and we'll do the other vertical, which is how does truth make you understand ahimsa, and how do you really get what we call ananda, bliss. I'm very passionate about ahimsa, so are many people, even our founding father. It is really interesting to see how our understanding has shaped over time of ahimsa. We say, I like chicken, I like this, but do you really like chicken, or do you like your tongue's taste for chicken? Again, I'm not here to convert anyone to vegetarianism. So, and there are so many documentaries I can take you to or give you. And again, these are just for information. It's not for really saying that become vegetarian. The world will become kinder or better if it does. When you love someone, say your parents' or father's birthday, what will you do? You would want to surprise your father. You would want to, make handcrafted gifts for them, cook something nice. So that selfless, loving exchange, which is spontaneous and unmotivated, is something we all want to receive and give. So when we do that, that's great. We sort of increase our ability to be non-violent because we are focusing on being loving. When we do more loving acts towards nature, towards animals, towards other beings, not just in our family, people from all faiths, don't get swayed by social media or what is being propagated or propagandas all around you. Look at people at the soul level, then you won't see religions, you won't see countries, you won't see many things, IPL teams, right? A good player is a good player. A good nationalist or a statesman is a great statesman. Great example of a leader which leads the country, irrespective of where they come from, what geopolitical ideologies they follow, and so on and so forth. So, once we know the power of love, our life becomes a lot simpler and less violent. So when you love your father, you will not hurt your father. Simple rule, right? But very often, we've all done that in some sense, our relations, not necessarily father, could be anyone else. And when we actually do acts of love which are spontaneous, unmotivated and uninterrupted, the joy a father will get in this case will be actually less than the bliss you will get. So that is ananda. So ahimsa can be replaced here by actually ananda. And that's what all we are here for actually. Because we are looking for happiness, we are looking for love in all the wrong places. My teacher used to sing this song saying, we're looking for love in all the wrong places. Anju, you might know this. So there's quite a few interesting conversations we've had today. Our truth aligns us to non-violence. And it makes all the difference. Our understanding of who we are, how we see the world around us is the truth. And that alignment gives us the power to live a heart-centered life, which is called Atmana. When we do that, we reach it at two levels, which is become a Mahatma. We say what we think and do what we say. We stop looking at social media because what people are saying they don't mean, and what they are doing is not what they're saying. So that's one level. And if you become a Mahatma, you radiate that energy to attract other people who want to know where that glow of clarity comes. You want to know how to navigate your disruptions. You know how to help people, how to navigate their disruptions. And that gives you bliss as well, because you're sharing, loving, and causing the least harm. You become equipoised in any situation because the situation was dependent on your own ignorance and the three energies that were making you do what you did. You become a lot more, you have this innate sense of bliss which you want to sort of also tell other people about. So that's the end of my talk, and time for questions.